What's up, folks? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review another System of a Down album, which is Steal This Album from 2002. Now, Serj Tankian, the lead singer from that group, dropped an EP back in the winter of 2021, and I'm going to get to that also because I want to start covering more of the System of a Down chronology. But I want to also finish up the System of a Down catalog. So this is one of the last two projects I have to review. It's this one and then Hypnotize that came out in 2005. So this is a pretty good project, and that's definitely the thing. A little bit of background on it is their second album, Toxicity, which was a pretty insanely popular project with songs like Aerials and Chop Suey and those type records. And then there was like another one off there. I think it was the title track Toxicity. But apparently they were going to follow up that project almost immediately because the reason why they called this project Steal This Album and it has like a picture of like a blank CD on there is because of back in the early 2000s, the whole downloading music kind of thing. And so apparently, like, there was leaked versions of stuff that they had worked on that was going to be called Toxicity 2. So that's pretty dope, but System of a Down found out about it and they weren't too happy about it. You know, sometimes, and with the rap community, what they typically do when something gets leaked, they just scrap whatever those songs were and work on new ones. But I'm glad that System of a Down didn't do that. They just kept these songs, polished them a bit better, and then just put it out at the end of the year. But unfortunately, whatever real promotion and ideas that they had plans for this project were very different. That's probably my biggest complaint. I mean, I'm going to give this project a high score, but it just felt really stark and kind of bare bones. It didn't really feel like there was a lot of like effort and kind of promotion that went into this project. It was very skeletal. And there's only one single. They didn't bother following it up with the second single or really much of anything. I mean, minus the song Inner Vision, which is pretty much one of the best System of a Down songs in their whole catalog. There just isn't really much of anything to speak of. I mean, honestly, after how big Toxicity was, and then this quietly came out after that, it seemed like by the time you got to like the second half of 2003, that was it. I mean, honestly, I wasn't, huge into rock to really know how popular this project was when it first came out, but it just didn't feel like it had much, extra stuff that went along with it. So that was just kind of the thing was I mean, honestly, Toxicity was such a big project, but then this was just kind of quiet, and then they took time off and then came back in 2005 with Mesmerize and Hypnotize, and then just vanished for good after that. So I don't know why I don't want to say they had an attitude problem, but it just always seemed like they were kind of partial to wanting to kind of do things. It seemed like the only real two projects that they really had the oomph to really do stuff was just their 1998 album and then Toxicity. But I mean, honestly, the whole downloading set, I think that's just the sheer hype for how badly people wanted some new stuff from these fellows. So you can't be mad about that. But yeah, to talk about the singles, I mean, really, there was just one single, but I think there was kind of like a pseudo single that just at least got a music video, but it didn't bother really getting promoted. So Inner Vision was really good. And like I said, I mean, that's probably one of my favorite songs on this project. It's a little bit longer. It's not just 12 songs, it's 16. But this is one of the ones that has like the most polish. This feels like it really could have been on a regular System of a Down album, not just some kind of hodgepodge of collection of releases, but this is just good. I mean, I think they perform it in concert and it's a stellar song. It's catchy the whole way through. Maybe not as good as Chop Suey or Spiders or Sugar or some of those songs, but it is pretty good. And the second single, which is not really the official second single, but the closest thing that there is Boom, which really doesn't even have like singing in the verses. It's just political commentary. It's just mostly Serj Tankian just talking about something that's going wrong with the world. It seemed like he's talking about how they're spending more money on bombs more so than helping out like the planet and hunger and starvation and that sort of stuff, which they were one of the few folks that was doing that. back in like 2002 and such. So that's pretty good, but I wish that they just would have sang about it. I mean, it's original just because no one really did verses like that where they were just talking, but it just is kind of weird. It's a weird song, and they didn't bother to promote it. And I don't even if it would have charted had they actually decided to promote this as like a rock single, but that basically takes care of it. I mean, I think still, I mean, this gets a high score from me, but I still think my favorite System of a Down album is their 1998 one. Just because the way that this album kind of works out, there's just not good song selections. I just feel like it's a real sloppy kind of execution. And despite the fact that the songs are good, they just have extremely uninteresting song titles like Boom, Bubbles, IEA, IAO, 36, Pictures, Chicken Stew. I mean, there's just so many of these that just have terrible song titles, and I just feel like the piecing together of it was just probably the worst of all the System of a Down albums they've done. I mean, it could have just been like Let's Get Crunk Tonight and jamming out Friday night, let's party, some shit like that. This is for the babes, some stuff. But I mean, I really kind of was in disagreement with the way that a lot of these song titles kind of went. I mean, some of them were okay, like Highway Song, Fuck the System, Inner Vision, but a lot of this was just kind of questionable as far as like the direction they had. I don't know if the band was actually that pissed off. I mean, it wasn't really displayed how annoyed that they truly were back in 2002, but like I said before, it really seems like they were always kind of in disconcert every single time they dropped albums just because, they just completely went on hiatus after 2005. So I just don't know why they've always kind of been so garbled just with how their music outings have kind of gone. But so that this is kind of the situation, and I just would kind of have to say, but this album is going to get a 9 out of 10 or a 9.5 out of 10. I'll give it a 9.5 because I'm going to list the 13 songs out of 16 that I enjoyed. Most of it's kind of good. It's just the fact that the execution is sloppy. There's not many singles, and it just feels like it doesn't feel like an official System of a Down album. So those are the things. But so here are the 13 songs I enjoyed: Inner Vision, Fuck the System, Highway Song, Ego Brain, Roulette, Boom, Streamline, Bubbles, IEA, etc., Mr. Jack, Theta Waves, 36, and Nugans. So that's just kind of some of the stuff. And I'll talk about some of my absolute favorites out of these to kind of help decode this a bit better. And like I said, Inner Vision's extremely good. I like the creativity of Boom, even though it's not much of singing and melody in there. Highway Song's pretty good. It kind of reminds me of Spiders. Ego Brain is like that. There's some real like post grunge and more reflective kind of songs, softer, not necessarily metal type songs in the second half of the project. Highway Song, Ego Brain, Theta Waves, and possibly Roulette are kind of like that. So I like those. All of those were really good. Like I was saying, those are some good ones. Mr. Jack was pretty good. I like the approach on that. It had a real kind of creeping instrumentation. I like Nugans. That's kind of like Sugar. And I like Bubbles because that's a pretty hype song too. I just didn't like the name of it. So yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of songs on this project that are good. It's just I feel like just the polish is just not there. So gets a 9.5 out of 10. And then the social score, I'm just going to have to give like a 2 out of 10 just because Inner Vision is extremely good, but I don't know why they just couldn't help this project more and really kind of bolster it, because not only did they not promote this project, but they didn't come back until 2005 after this came out. So I don't know what went wrong between those years and stuff. So Boom, if you count Boom, but I don't really count Boom because it didn't chart and it didn't seem like they hardly promoted it. So it was just terrible promotion. But it is, I mean, if you can look past all that, I mean, if you don't care about cosmetics, you can be able to understand that this is an extremely good System of a Down album, and it's about as good as the first System of a Down. Just it doesn't have much promotion. You just have to kind of dig through it yourself. But it just grates on my nerves just because I expect rock projects to kind of have some stuff to talk about, and just because it's just more handpicking yourself. You kind of find your favorites more so than the radio doing it for you. And sometimes I like that, but other times I don't, just because it's kind of questionable, just because you don't necessarily know. I mean, because everyone's just going to be different. The only real starting point you have is just inner vision. But other than that, it's a pretty, um, extremely stellar project.